You ever think about the invisible map that runs your workday? You know, the one that tells you who to report to, who you work with, and let's be honest, where the real power is? Well, today we're going to unfold that map and take a good look.
Yeah, it's a classic feeling, right? We've all been there. And that feeling, it's not an accident. It comes directly from the most common way companies have been built for, well, forever. It's a structure that's designed for clarity, sure, but it can also make you feel pretty disconnected from the big picture. And here it is. This is that map, the classic corporate pyramid. For more than a century, this top-down hierarchy has been the go-to blueprint for building a business. Why? It promises order and efficiency, especially when you get really, really big. So let's take a tour and see how this thing actually works, from the very top all the way to the bottom.
Okay, so every tour has a starting point, and for this one, we are heading straight to the summit. Let's start right at the very peak of power. Right at the tippy top sits the CEO. In this traditional setup, pretty much all the power is concentrated right here. Every big strategy, every final call, every major risk, it all flows from this one single point. The buck, as they say, absolutely stops here.
So, just one step down from the CEO, you've got the C-suite, your chief officers, your executive VPs. Think of them as the top lieutenants. Their job is critical. They have to take the CEO's grand vision and somehow translate it into actual concrete plans for their huge parts of the company, like finance or marketing or operations.
All right, so we've seen the command center, but how does a single decision made way up there actually travel down through the rest of the company to get things done? Let's follow the chain.
This whole central pillar you're seeing, that's the company's operational backbone. It's a really strict, direct chain of command, where information is really only meant to flow one way, down. A decision just cascades from a senior VP to a manager, then down to the next level, and so on all the way to the front lines, making sure everyone is executing the same plan.
But you know, that main pyramid, it can't operate in a vacuum. It needs a lot of specialized help to actually function.
See all these other supporting groups? Legal, public relations, research, accounting. They're not in the direct line of making the product, but they're kind of like the company's nervous system. They provide all that specialized expertise, the legal advice, the financial know-how that keeps the entire operation from just grinding to a halt.
You know, one source had this perfect way of describing them, calling them ornaments on a corporate tree. And that's such a brilliant metaphor, isn't it? They are totally connected to the main trunk, often advising the top brass, but they really function as their own distinct, specialized branches.
So that's the big picture, the view from 30,000 feet. But what does this massive structure actually mean for you? You know, the person who has to navigate it every single day.
That big pyramid, it shows the map of power, but it doesn't really show your personal roadmap, does it? To get a handle on your day-to-day reality, we need to zoom way in, from the whole corporation down to just you.
Okay, now this view is radically different. Instead of a top-down pyramid, it's more like a web. This is your personal network. These are the key relationships that really define how you get your job done.
So let's trace the flow here. Those high-level goals, they're often coming down from your boss's boss. Your actual specific projects, those come from your immediate boss. Then you're collaborating sideways with your colleagues. And if you're a manager, you're delegating tasks down to your own team. See? This is your actual daily web of who you talk to.
And when you put them side by side, the difference is just crystal clear. The pyramid is a map of authority. It tells you who has the formal power. But this network, this is a map of workflow. It shows who you actually talk to every day to do your job. You really need to understand both to get by.
So we've just toured the blueprint that basically built the modern corporation. But, you know, every blueprint eventually gets a little dated.
So if you had to boil this whole model down, what is it really about? Well, it's about a crystal clear chain of command, having all the decisions flow strictly from the top down, giving everybody a highly specialized role, and using very formal, often pretty rigid, ways to communicate.
And look, you can't deny its impact. This structure created efficiency on a scale that was just unimaginable before. It let massive companies get millions of people all rowing in the same direction. For a very, very long time, this was the undisputed king of how you organize a business.
Which, of course, leads to the big question. In a world that's now all about agile startups and cross-functional teams, and people working remotely from all over the globe, does this rigid top-down pyramid even make sense anymore? Or is this century-old blueprint finally due for a complete and total redesign?
That's really the challenge facing pretty much every workplace today.